Today we're going to talk about the Ziss Artemia Blender and how I raise and feed brine shrimp in the fish room. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel, fin lovers. It's Mr. B. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I've been wanting to do since I started my channel back up, and that is brine shrimp. A lot of people ask me, Mr. B, what do I feed my fry? How are you getting your Corydoras to survive? How are you getting your guppies to put on weight and grow as fast as you do? And the simple fact is I feed a lot of quality foods in my fish room, including live food, and more specifically, baby brine shrimp. To me, it is a staple in my fish room, and in my opinion, my humble opinion, I believe it probably belongs in yours as well. Today we're going to talk about what I think is one of the best purchases I've ever made from Aquarium Co-op, and that is the Ziss Artemia Blender. Why I believe it is such a quality item, why I have two of them in my fish room, and how easy it is to breed brine shrimp to the levels that I need. When you have as many tanks as I do and you're constantly have young fry growing up in your tanks, to me, it is imperative that you get live food into them as soon as possible. Now, when we're talking about something like my rainbow fish, my pseudomcgills, or killifish, a lot of times baby brine shrimp is not the first food you would go to. Those fish are too small to be able to consume even a newly hatched baby brine shrimp. So this would go towards those fish at later stages in their development, but it is imperative, in my opinion, to get them into guppies and swordtails after their first 5 or 6 days into your baby cories. I even put them in with young Plecostomus as a snack for them. So today I'm just going to go over the benefits of the Artemia Blender. I'm going to show you the parts of it. There are not many. Some of the parts that you're seeing in here are parts that I've added. I'm going to show you how to set up the blender with your Artemia eggs, as well as how to harvest them, and eventually I will show you how to feed them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the small number of components in the Artemia Blender. I'm going to take the lid off. I'll put it down here for a second. And over here, you will see why they gave it the name Blender. The container here kind of is very reminiscent of a blender that you would use in your house for making soups or milkshakes or whatever. It's got a nice sturdy handle, really good construction, really hard plastic. What I like about it is the handle and the gap. And you'll see later on why I like this, but I'll just tell you now, it hangs really nicely off of my rack. So I don't have to have an additional stand for it. It's kind of compact on the stand, so I enjoy that. It did come with a stand, but since it does have the ability to hang from my rack, I got rid of the stands. Okay, down here you can see that there is a outlet tube here. This is where you will eventually drain your brine shrimp from. It is being held closed by this piece right here. It's got some O-rings on it, and basically its purpose is to fill this hole and to go above the outlet here. That keeps the liquid and, more importantly, your brine shrimp in the container. When you're ready to release them, you simply turn clockwise until a stream of water with your newly hatched brine shrimp will come out. We're just going to keep it closed right here. This holds approximately 2 liters of water. Just so you know, it's an easy measurement when you're using your water and your salt, as well as when you're using your Artemia eggs to hatch. I'm going to put this down for a second. This is the lid. It's a very, very simple lid. Basically, this part right here, you're going to put your air line in. Your air line is going to go in. It's going to go down this tube into the air stone, and it's going to circulate your eggs. When you're hatching brine shrimp eggs, it's very important to not only keep them moving, which is what the air stone is for, but to also keep the water warm. When I say warm, I say you want to keep it around 80 to 82. Generally, I keep mine at about 80 degrees. At 80 degrees, you should get a full hatch in about 18 hours. If you were to keep it a little lower, let's say 76, a full hatch might take you about 24 hours. You really don't want to go below 78, 76, and you do not want to go above 85 degrees. That's just bad for the eggs. You're going to get a very, very low hatch rate, and what does hatch is not going to be very nutritious for the fish. Inside the box, you do get this tube, which gets attached down here to this part to let the air out. This was just a little short for me, so what I did is, I don't know if you can see it, hopefully you can, I cut a little piece of airline and I attached it to the bottom here and to the plastic tube. That gave me a little bit more depth of the air stone, which circulated more of the brine shrimp. There is a very large opening at the top. What I did is I just moved a very simple heater into that spot. So now when it sits in here and I plug the heater in, it's going to keep the water in here to temperature. Now, this needs to be done in my fish room because, as we already discussed earlier, I have a fish apartment, and it would not be beneficial for me to keep my temperature at 80 degrees within the entire apartment. So I use this as a way to maintain the temperature right now. When I do get a fish room, the temperature will be set so I won't need the heater in here or in the majority of my tanks. So please take that into consideration. You don't necessarily need the heater if the room temperature can keep the water at about 78 to 80 to 82. Okay, so when you look at it, that's a very, very simple piece of construction. Now, I know there are going to be people who watch this video and tell me it's cheaper to set up a DIY Artemia hatchery. And that's probably true. But what I am capable of is not always what's best for my fish. I don't necessarily have the greatest skills of setting up these DIY features, so I will spend the extra money to have a professional item in my fish room. The things that I can DIY, I do DIY. I didn't feel comfortable with this because the Artemia are that important to the fish room. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut away to some video of me setting up the hatchery on my stand adding the water, adding the Artemia eggs, and you will see me do that. Then we will do some harvesting. We'll see how I harvest the eggs, how I rinse them to make sure I get rid of as many things I don't want in the tank, such as eggs, such as extra salt. Salt in an aquarium is not a bad idea. I just don't like putting a lot of salt in. Since I feed a lot of Artemia, I would be putting a lot of salt in on a weekly basis. Salt does not evaporate, it stays within the tank, so eventually I believe it would catch up to my fish and become toxic to them. So I keep the salt out of the aquarium as much as possible. So stay tuned to see how we set this up, see how easy it is, and then we'll be back. Okay, fin lovers, so the container is approximately 2 liters. So I'm adding about 4 cups of non-dechlorinated water. You do not need to use any type of dechlorinator such as Prime, because the chlorine, if it's present, will actually help the baby brine shrimp break through the egg casing. So to this, I am going to be adding 1.5 tablespoons of kosher salt using a measuring spoon from Aquarium Co-op. It's plastic, so the salt is not going to corrode it. I will be adding 2 spoonfuls of brine shrimp eggs, because I do not have a lot of fry I'm feeding right now. My brine shrimp eggs of choice come from Brine Shrimp Direct. They are 90% hatch, and I find it's a very good value. I am now adding the heater and the air stone by putting the cap on. You can see the bubbles are bubbling through the air stone. I will be plugging in the heater. This will ensure my water stays at approximately 80 degrees. And again, that's going to be a good hatch rate for them. And now we just have to wait. Okay, fin lovers, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to empty this batch so we can prepare them for feeding. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to stop the air. And in my case, I'm also going to unplug the heater. Okay, so now if you put a flashlight towards the bottom of the container, the brine shrimp are going to swim down towards that light. So you'll be able to collect them a lot faster and hopefully not have too many eggs come out when we do start to drain. So since this could be a little tedious, what I'm going to do, fin lovers, is I'm going to pause the video right here so we can draw some more brine shrimp down. So let me pause and we'll be back. Okay, fin lovers, so it's been about 5 minutes, and as you can see down here towards the light, you have all of the baby brine shrimp swimming down here. And if I bring this up a little bit, here are the egg shells floating in here. As up top here, you can see it's covered up there. There are some down here, but the majority of them are floating or at the top of the container. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the drain. And we're going to bring all of the live brine shrimp into the container here. One of the benefits of shining a flashlight down here is when they collect down there, you don't have to worry about these floating eggshells as much. We take a look here. Yep, we've got all we need here. Down here is going to be eggs. As you can see, as I shook the container, these are all egg shells right here. So they're not going to do us any good. So now, fin lovers, we're going to take this, we're going to strain it, we're going to get our brine shrimp out, and then we're going to do some feeding. Okay, fin lovers, so this is a new strainer that I just purchased earlier this week. I used to use this one, and as you can see, it's a little beat up. It's a little worse for wear. So I went out and I tried a different one. So I used it once this week. It seems to be good, so we're going to use it again. This was just simply purchased from Amazon as a brine shrimp net. So what we're going to do is now we're simply going to pour the contents through this strainer. It is a 200 micron strainer, so it's going to be small enough to hold the brine shrimp. Down there at the base started to be very brown, so those are going to be some eggshells I should say, so we don't want those there. So I'm going to take and run this through, and what this is going to do is get rid of the salt that's on there. So again, as we mentioned, I don't want too much salt going into the tank. So we'll just let this sift through, maybe just do just a little bit more. Again, as you can see, the majority of the brine shrimp are still in here. It's small enough. Just going to do a little shake, All right, and what we're going to do, I'm going to put the cup down here, turn the strainer over, run the water through so we're getting all of the brine shrimp out of the strainer. And now we're just going to fill about to there, and as you can see, you have a nice orange glow coming from the cup. Again, that's all the live brine. So now the only thing to do, fin lovers, is to feed them to the fry. Okay, so here we're going to feed some of the violet cobra fry. You can see they are attacking it with gusto. Okay, and now we've got some purple dragons in with my black Schultzes. They'll both love this. Put a little bit extra in there for the Venezuelans. As soon as any kind of food hits this tank, these Venezuelan cories really start to get moving. It's a good sight to see. Next tank, we're going to do the Pseudomagil Gertrude Aru 2. These are my breeders. Again, you don't need to go too heavy, but you want to make sure they're all getting a shot at some. Actually, I could probably put a little bit more in here. So you see, it's not just for fry. larger fish will enjoy baby brine as well. Okay, now these are the younger pseudomagills. As you'll see, they willingly take this brine shrimp. These will be being moved today. They are still in their 2.5 gallon hatch out tank. They will be moving into a 5 gallon tank so we can get a little bit more size on them, and then they will be going into a 10 gallon. So I do it in stages when I'm bringing up my fry, unless I have no choice and I start them off bigger, but usually they will go from a 2.5 to a 5 to a 10. You put just a little bit more in there. Well, there you have it, fin lovers. Anybody who thinks that making baby brine shrimp to feed to your fish is too difficult, I hope this video changes that thought. It's really a simple process, and your fish will definitely benefit from live food, especially baby brine. Until next time, fin lovers, remember, you're going to need a bigger tank.